Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time to bring you a brand new unboxing video. So today's subject comes courtesy of the wonderful TF Source, who sent me this to review. I'll put the link to their site in the video description, and I'll be aiming to get the full write-up published on their blog ASAP, but for now we're going to be cracking that box open and taking a quick look at the contents, as well as giving you my first impressions on the toy in question. And this should be a pretty exciting one, because this is FansToys FT-41 Sheridan, and we all know what character it's meant to be, right?
Sheridan!
Oh, sorry, wrong show. It's this guy.
Zowie! Wham! Bang! I'll blow him out of the blue, Perceptor! They don't call me Warpath, 'cause I'm gentle!
Yep, this is intended to be a third-party masterpiece-style Warpath. So let's see what it's all about before we get that box open, shall we? FansToys first revealed Sheridan around the middle of 2018, so by their usual schedule this guy has made it into collectors' hands pretty quickly. I've been really excited to see how this figure would pan out, as I'm a big fan of Warpath from the cartoon, and although we have already had one masterpiece-styled attempt at him, I've always felt that there's been enough room left on the table for another crack. Let's see if FansToys have hit the spot this time. Warpath is arguably one of the more memorable characters that were introduced in Season 2 of the original Transformers cartoon series, if only for the distinctive way that he talks.
Bam! Gotcha! Who's bang! Yeah!
I remember the first time I saw him was in the second half of the two-part caper Dinobot Island, where he takes on Blitzwing in a battle of the tanks.
Hang in there, Beachcomber! Here comes the cavalry! Da-da-da-da-da-da! Hey, Blitzwing! Thank you!
Now that's a first impression that stays with you. One of his most notable episodes was a Decepticon raider in King Arthur's court, especially the bit where he has a jousting battle with the Decepticon Ramjet.
Avance, Atheling! No laser power left, but we're still gonna whoosh clean their clocks! You've ruined my nose!
He also has a sizable role in episodes such as Hoist Goes Hollywood, where he's one of the Autobots hired to perform as stunt vehicles in a movie. This is where we see him wearing the alien mask costume that FansToys Sheridan pays homage to with one of the accessories. The original Warpath toy was released in 1985 and remains highly distinctive for the peculiar placement of the tank turret in his robot mode. His eyes are up here, buddy. I absolutely adore the G1 toy, as although it's small and simple, it's packed with charm and just feels really unusual. As I mentioned, we have had one other third-party masterpiece attempt at this character, which was Bad Cube War Dog from about 5 years ago now. That toy was rather infamous for its beefy proportions, but also for its highly complicated transformation, particularly in how the shoulders need to be contorted. For this reason it had plenty of critics, despite being a solid representation of the character overall. For what it's worth, I actually quite enjoyed War Dog, although I have to admit that I'm very curious to see what FansToys have cooked up in competition with it. It looks as though they're swinging a lot closer to the character's animation model for one thing, so if they've nailed it with Sheridan, then it might be time for War Dog to retire from service, but we'll see. The box features some very nice FansToys styled artwork on the front, with Warpath looking suitably heroic in his robot mode, whilst the back has the usual character blurb and promo shots that should be more than enough to whet your appetite for the contents inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this guy unboxed. Now I have already undone the tape for sake of speed, so we can just go ahead and open the flap on the top there. Inside you've got the usual polystyrene inner box that FansToys have become known with. I think it was since their attempt at Swoop that they've been doing that. Probably not the best for the environment, but hey ho. So let's go ahead and get the tape off. There we go, there's one. Let's do a couple of those. Right, let's see what we've got inside here. Oops, wrong way. That side. There we go. We've got this little plastic sheet on the front, so we'll just get rid of that. There he is in the box. Looking very nice, it has to be said. Really lovely colours, so we'll go ahead and get him out. Okay, so accessories-wise, there's the little alien mask costume that we've already mentioned. So we'll take a look at, more of a look at that in a minute. We'll get the toy out here. Hang on one second. Right, there we go. Looks like he needs a little bit of adjustment to get him properly into his robot mode, but that is him. There we go. So we'll get I think his arms probably need a bit of adjustment there. Looking at it, they don't proportionally look quite right. But straight out the box, he's looking pretty swish, I have to say. Really, really liking that. So we'll go ahead in a minute and just kind of get him all positioned up and take a look at the mask as well. Right, so I've just quickly made a few adjustments to the robot mode, and it looks like the arms just needed to come out at the joints here at the elbow joints a little bit, and just a little bit of fiddling with the shoulders as well, because they were just kind of packed in a little bit. It looks like they're on a sort of swing joint like that, so they can actually be positioned outward slightly if you prefer, or you could have it packed in a little bit closer to the body as well. So first impressions of this robot mode, I absolutely think he looks fantastic, to be honest. He's a really, really nice style. To my eye, looks very close to the animation model as well, so that's always a really nice thing. Something that FansToys generally do really well, it has to be said. And it looks like they've really nailed it in this case. Very different proportions to War Dog, which I actually do happen to have here as well. And you can see them just both together there. War Dog, sadly, is a little bit loose in the ankles these days. You can kind of see he was fine when he was new, but over time he's just sort of loosened off a little bit. He's 5 years old now, obviously. But you can sort of see the two of them together there. There we go. So yeah, I think very, very different styles between these two. War Dog is way more chunky and stylized, whereas Sheridan, just off the bat, does a much better job at aping that cartoon model, it's fair to say. Sleeker proportions, ever so slightly smaller as well, but probably more what a lot of collectors are going to be looking for. But that said, I still think that War Dog looks pretty great all the same. So what else is there to note with this robot mode? Well, he's got a really, really cool head sculpt. Looks, again, spot on to the cartoon, to my eye. He's got his little gun turret just here, which obviously protrudes out quite a bit. You might think that that's a bit bizarre, but hey, that's just kind of how the character was, so it is what it is. It can actually be extended out a little bit there if you really want it to. Some lovely molded detail. I don't know if you can see just here on the side, but some nice little, realistic tank parts. He's got very, very nice silver paint on these treads and on his feet as well, which is something that actually War Dog didn't do so well. It was just sort of a bare grey plastic, so that looks much more premium. Feels really solid, like a lot of FansToys figures do. FansToys collectors, typically always talk about that heft. And although he's not the biggest figure, he is actually about Masterpiece Carbot size. Still, he's got that real kind of weight to him, which, clear sign of a lot of die-cast. I think there might be some definitely in the chest there somewhere, definitely in the feet. It's not immediately, but maybe, yeah, just in the legs here, that's definitely die-cast along there. So it's quite a good match. Really, obviously, very uniform colour scheme overall. Some nice little blue eyes just there, but not a whole lot of paint applications going on. But I guess really, that's kind of what you expect for the character, so fair enough. And then, of course, we've got the alien mask as well, which just slots on the front of his face very easily and looks really great, actually. It's kind of a fun little accessory, good inclusion there. Interestingly, it's not the first toy that has come with this particular accessory from different third-party companies. I recall that X-Transbots did this for their hoist, which of course is the main character in that story, and DX9 did it with their Power Glide as well, so you could actually get a couple of these and have them across different characters, which is quite good fun. Right then, it's time to get this guy into his tank mode. And I guess, I'm slightly nervous about this transformation as FansToys. They tend to vary a little bit really on their transformations. Some of them are not so bad, and some of them really are pretty terrible. I mean, I remember having a go at their Jabber, which is their blur, and that is just not something that I really want to repeat anytime soon. But some of them really aren't too bad. So I've heard that this guy isn't too complicated, so we'll give it a go in a minute. I'm sure it's going to be probably easier than War Dog. I've got the instructions right here, which of course are also included in the box, and they don't look too bad. To be fair, you can see all of the different steps just there, and they really don't make it look like it's too horrendous. I didn't mention it before, but of course there's also the character card with this guy as well. If you really dig those sorts of things, they're not really my bag, but some people really like them, so that of course is included there. So yeah, anyway, I'm not too worried about this transformation, but we'll see how it goes. Now, I've taken a bit of feedback from previous videos that I've done, previous unboxing videos, and I'm going to try and do this live on camera without speeding it up this time to see how we go. So bear with me. The last toy I did on camera I managed to break, so always an interesting one. So let's give it a go. Right, so the first thing that we're going to pay attention to is these little bits at the back. Now, I have heard that the knees can be a bit of a problem on this guy. A few people that I've spoken to have said about that. And in fact, the instructions do kind of make quite a big thing of that. There's these two little tabs just on the back here that need to be flipped out. And that releases, I believe, the knees to kind of do some... I don't know, it's like some weird Jean-Claude Van Damme type thing. So they just swing to the side ever so slightly. There's then a tab here. Okay, should just undo. Let's try this side first. There we go. Come back to that side. Let's get his arms out of the way. Okay, so that spins open. Okay, 180, so the whole way. There we go. And then that looks like that tabs in on the other side. We'll see in a minute. It's interesting because one thing I have been told about this toy, or read a few times, is that there's, how to put this, there's a lot of lube coming off it, and already I've got quite greasy fingers just from that part in there. This is something that I've seen on a few... so I'm just going to wipe my hands on my jeans there just because it's like mad. I've not got a cloth or anything with me. I have had this before with a couple of FansToys figures where you get that little bit of oil or lube coming off them, but that is really something. It has to... I mean, look, actually, I don't know if you can see just here. Oops, get on camera. But it's really... there's a lot on there. That's really quite saturated, actually. Very, very strange. Get rid of that. Okay, anyway, back to the transformation at hand. Didn't necessarily mean to be discussing the lube too much. Right, so I've got to rotate this bit. Come on, this is the content you come here for, right? There we go. Now, what do you do with that? Turn 180. Okay, so flatten that. How does that get flattened? Like that? No. Back to there. Not 100% sure. Let's try this. I always find it's easier when you do the leg or what have you, the appendage anyway, that's kind of the one shown in the picture. So rotate that round. Okay. So a little sign in the instructions that just says fixer, which is interesting because I don't know what they mean by that. Okay, so turn 90 degrees. Okay, hang on. It's like that. There we go. So it is like that. I thought it was like that, but the instructions are not the clearest at that point. So that wants to tab into there, supposedly. But I can't get it to go. What am I missing? Just going to figure this out quickly. Right, so I managed to get that bit actually in the end. It's just here. It does sort of tab in on the opposite side of where it starts out. I had to force it a little bit, not going to lie. I had to really kind of push, which was the bit that was making me nervous. And actually, just there's a tiny little stress mark already. I don't know if you can see it. I actually think it was maybe there before I even had to sort of push a little bit hard, but something to watch out for. Anyway, that's kind of where it wants to be now, so let's just do the other side very quickly. Okay, he's trying to bend rather than that, so there we go. Take everything around to where it needs to be. Just like that. Now here's the tricky bit. Now it's clipped in much easier on that side, way easier. I don't know if that's just because I knew what I was doing or what, but it went in a lot easier than previous. So that's the first page of instructions done. Well, hey, let's move on. Okay, so now it looks like the feet slide out. It says pull down. Hang on. Yeah. Oof, that's pretty tough. Very stiff. That side's easier. Again, maybe just less nervous, but you know, sometimes you have to pull really hard on these things and it's just kind of like, makes you feel a bit nervous. Then there's some little panels just there that flip out. Right. So the front of the feet. Oh, okay, I think it's just the whole bit. That's kind of cool. So there's a really nice action, so because he's quite obviously got a flat foot there for robot mode, but then as it pulls out, if I can do that whilst you look, as it pulls out, the whole thing kind of hinges. So that's quite a nice little touch. It works really well. And again, bit of die cast in there. Okay, and then that rather predictably folds back up. Get that in place. And tab. Oops, not quite. Here we go, I think we've just about got that. And do the other side. Whilst trying not to push that back in. There we go. Side was easier, I know I keep saying that, but there we go. So we got the fronts of the tank, two halves of the front of the tank done anyway, that's good. Right, now there's a little bit just here on the front, which obviously is just fake for the feet. That folds inside, goes all the way. The fake bit of, I guess that's to give him that look in robot mode where it looks like the treads have sort of folded around on themselves, but actually they haven't. It's the little fake part. Oh, great. It's always nice when you see the word caution in the instructions. I just love that. Okay, so we're gonna, looks like we've done the legs for now anyway. They're clearly gonna kind of fold up in a little bit. So let's move our attention to the back. So, what does it say? It says caution, fold as shown. Well, I was not gonna fold it any other way, don't worry about that. So, I think that's for when you're trying to return it to the robot mode, because it doesn't, there's no feasible way that you could fold it how it's showing you in the transformation to tank mode. So, okay, so it looks like we're just going to lift up the little backpack just there. It's actually not, does it tab in? Yeah, it does tab in down the bottom, but mine had sort of come untabbed whilst I was moving it. And then we're going to lift the two sides of his main body. That's pretty easy, actually. That just pulls up just there, like that. That was not as worrying as I thought it might be from the instructions. There's a lot of signs saying this tab is for robot mode. Wonderful. That's helpful. Right, there's a little hinge. Looks like just behind the back of his head. Not quite sure how to get to it, but there we go. There we are, just behind his head. So presumably his head's going to go through there in just a minute. Next page, rocking through this. Okay, now it looks like this whole assembly that's on top of his head, or sort of over his head, has to fold backwards. So I think we kind of, yeah, they make it look very simple in the picture, but it doesn't look like there's a huge amount of clearance. So I'm just going to manipulate that as needed. Oh, no, there we go. So it's just a question of getting the head placed correctly to allow that whole assembly to fold backwards. And that looks like that's going to be, you know, presumably the rear half of the tank. It's starting to take a bit of shape now anyway. So it just is to get all of that out of the way. And then the tank turret section, oops, untabs and folds up. Starting to look like a little bit of a mess at the moment. It's always that midpoint of transformation, isn't it? When the whole thing looks like it's exploded. Right, that comes out. A little bit that's tabbed away. Turn 90 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and say that this bit... Oh, maybe not. Thought that was supposed to untab. I'll come back to that in a minute. I was going to be cheeky and go off book there for a second. Right, let's try and orientate that as they've got it in the instructions. For my view, anyway. Turn 90 degrees. Which bit? They do not make it clear which bit is turning. I think it's that bit. I think it's just the top of this red bit on top of the silver. But it's not immediately clear that that's the case. Okay, yes, I think it is, and that's to facilitate this backpack bit. Oh, I've scratched myself, lovely. It's to facilitate this backpack bit manoeuvring up. But it looks like, again, there's a bit of a trick to that. No, that doesn't want to go. Hang on. Oh no, I thought the app crunch might help, but no. Right, let's just double check. Okay. Oh, okay, I get it. So they're actually not entirely clear in the instructions there, but it's this bit does rotate, but then you rotate the turret back to allow the clearance for that bit to go through. So it's a two-stage maneuver. So firstly, it's this piece that folds round, including the turret, and then you fold the turret back so that this bit is at the front, and that just allows you enough clearance to fold this silver bit up through the body, and then it goes back to the orientation that it was to begin with, just like that. So the instruction's not quite clear there. I feel like they're probably just missing a step. But hey, I figured it out. Right, now this is the bit that I was just looking at before. So yeah, it does. As I was trying to do it, so man, it says to pull that out, but that is extremely tough. 1 second. Woof, there we go, got it. Felt like I was going to break a fingernail there for a second, but that just that tab at the front that comes out. Head folded away. So that's obviously the front of the tank. Next page. Okay, it says pull out. Okay, so there's a... Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's a huge hinge just there in the middle of the body that needs to come out. That ab crunch. Let's give them way again. Hang on. Wait, there we go. It's quite a stiff little thing, it has to be said. Oh God, someone's going to record that and use it against me. Okay, and then... Right, so that sort of makes sense. So the body folds underneath there. This tab is for alt mode, it says. Okay, I see. So there's a tab here on the inside of the feet that's clearly going to end up here. So do we do that yet? Yes, we do. Okay, this is exciting. We're going to fold in the front halves of the tank. I've got to say, this is really not so bad so far. Okay, one half done. You know, I mean, a lot of third-party transformations are not what you would call intuitive. There's that word that a lot of masterpiece collectors use, including me. Oh, right, okay, hang on, there's another... Oh, damn. There's another tab inside, another little panel inside this one that I missed. I have no idea how to get that out. I might need to come back to that and get a little tool to have a go at that later, because there's a panel basically just inside this one that's extremely tight. Can't get a nail under there or anything. So yeah, that's definitely going to require the use of a tool, but clearly I'll show it to you in a second once I've got that re-tabbed in on the side there. But there you go. So there's clearly another panel that folds out to cover this gap just there. So it's a nice little touch. I mean, I guess it's not entirely necessary because it is the underneath of the tank, but without it folded out, I think I'm right. Yeah, without it folded out, that's not going to sit flush. So it's going to stick out at the bottom. So I will sort that out, but, you know, going to come back to it for sake of time. It says press with some strength. Well, I did it without thinking about it, so what do you know? Right, so now it says to pay attention to the arms. So we're going to fold away his hands. So in classic style, Transformer style, there's a little panel that pops up to allow the hands to fold away. Easy peasy. I want to go on the record and say I haven't broken anything so far. I realise that, you know, my second video, unboxing video, I go ahead and break something. I was worried that you would all be thinking that that was kind of par for the course for me, but I'm not typically in the habit of breaking my toys. There we go. Right. So then you kind of shrink the arms. It even says shrink in the instructions, so that's good. And then these bits, the tank treads, fold backwards. Do they? Kind of looks like they're already where they want them to be. I think it's just a little bit. There we go. I'm sure that'll do. I'll figure it out if not. Okay, we're getting there. We are definitely getting there. Right, so that needs to turn 180 degrees somehow. Is that? Oh, that's on the hinge joint here. Hang on. But it's not going to turn that way. That's... Oh, it's that side. Okay, that's why I'm getting confused. You love that when instructions where they turn the toy around or flip it over in between photographs from one photograph to the next, and they don't tell you, hey, we've actually changed the angle that you're viewing this toy at, so that when you're looking at the next photo, you're mystified as to why something won't go where they're telling you to put it. Such is life, I guess. Okay, shrink these down. And they've done it again. There we go. Turn it around again, but they don't tell you that. So it's like every picture you look at, you've got to kind of reorientate yourself and be like, hang on a minute, which way am I looking at this toy now? Oh, I flipped it over, never mind. Right, so these bits fold underneath. So there we go, just compress those down. So those are the sides of the robot that we flipped up earlier. Now they're just compressing out away, so obviously they're only for the robot. And then, okay, now we are going to fold these bits in there, I think, the arms. It's just to shrink them down, so let's just have a look at that. How do we do that? It's not entirely clear here. They've got a kind of vague arrow, but it doesn't make it especially clear what's supposed to happen. I'm thinking that it's... No, it doesn't think it's that way. Right, just going to figure this bit out. Hang on one second. Okay, I think I've got that bit now. So I was expecting these tabs to go in somewhere, but actually I'm not so sure that they do. Doesn't appear to anyway. And it's not particularly clear in the instructions, but it kind of looks like it should. So I think, well, I'm going to go with it anyway, and we'll just see. I've just noticed it makes particular mention of those little tabs here. That was actually the first step of the transformation that was really necessary to move the knees to the sides, and now we've just had to fold those back, so that's interesting. Right, looks like we can just go ahead and essentially squish the tank together. It's basically in two halves at the moment, so this is kind of the front half with the turret and what have you, and then we've got the back with the arms that was kind of raised from the sides, and then the backpack. It looks like we're just going to squish it all together. Now they're saying fold as shown. It's always good, because it's not always easy to do it that way. This tab is for alt mode. This is, okay, the instructions here are fairly unintuitive, I would say, as to what they're going to try and do. So I'm just going to, oops, and I've dropped them. So I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. I'm sure it'll all be good. It does look fairly obvious what they're trying to do. Hang on. It's that way that they're going. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you want to, I can explain it. So you want to have this hinge going up like that. This hinge goes up, and then actually it folds into the back of the body, I think. Well, I'm saying that with a lot of confidence, of course, without actually being able to demonstrate that that is correct. 1 second, let me skip ahead. No, that is correct, definitely, because you can see it on the final product. So that means we should. There we go. This requires a bit of the old force. More on this side than the other, actually. Here we go. Oops. Right, that's gone together. There we go. So that was not the most fun part, but it's okay. I mean, it does actually tab together really neatly. Just required a bit of effort there to kind of squish it all together. And then it looks like this back bit, which looks a bit like a car boot, should just smush down. There we go. And then, see, it says close. This tab is for alt mode, it says again. Right, so that is supposed to, yeah, it does it. So that's what those little tabs on the side of the arms were that caused me a bit of confusion before. It's for this bit, although it doesn't really tab in as such, but still. And then that's the final step, these little red bits on his backpack fold out and clip into there. I say final step because, of course, there's another final step, which is very important, extension of the turret. And there you go. That is FansToys Sheridan in his alt mode. So overall, I didn't think that transformation was too bad, actually. Didn't give me too much to worry about. I've got to say, I was kind of slightly nervous about what to expect from everything I'd heard or what have you, but it feels like that should be relatively repeatable. And actually, I know I missed that step on the front there, which I will sort out in just a moment. But, you know, generally speaking, there was nothing there that caused me major concern. I have grazed my thumb a little bit, but hey, you know, such is the price we pay. So first impressions on this alt mode then are that it looks really good. It's very solid and well put together, really chunky, and just looks fantastically detailed. I mean, you can see a lot of the real world detail along here at the front, really nice moulding. It's got his little hatch on top, it's on the back of his head, which actually looks like it should open. No, I don't think it does. I'll check that out later, but... Oh, no, it does. Yeah, there we go. So that's a nice little touch. You can actually open the little hatch on top of his... it's on the back of his robot mode head. It's quite difficult to do without folding the head out itself, but, you know, a neat little touch. They didn't have to do that, I guess. So it's kind of a little bit of fun. On the back there as well, some really nice silver paint going on that looks really good. So yeah, and I love these silver painted tank treads as well. So very solid little alt mode, smaller than I might have expected. I mean, it's definitely not as big as Bad Cube War Dog, because that toy was very good at almost kind of growing in size. I mean, it was basically the same size as MP10 Convoy's cab. Which was, you know, a big part of how they marketed it as well. Whereas this does feel a little bit smaller and kind of maybe more just like a Carbot size. So Masterpiece Carbot size. So we'll do some comparison pictures when I do the full review and what have you, but it's definitely a little bit smaller. But overall, first impressions are that this is, you know, really solid little alt mode. And generally speaking, I've quite enjoyed what I've seen of this toy so far. I mean, the robot mode was tip top, with some really nice, you know, really nice cartoon aesthetic, really nice look to it. Transformation was really not so bad at all. Actually, I would say quite clever at times, and a couple of bits that I thought were pretty ingenious. So I'm looking forward to giving that another go and seeing how I get on with it without instructions. And the alt mode looks pretty cracking. So I think these hinges here are maybe a little bit messy. And actually, just looking from the top, you can see sort of straight through the back there, through the back of the turret. So I don't know. That's kind of maybe not the best. A bit of kibble at the back there too. But, you know, overall, very, very tidy, neat little figure. Feels very good quality, good plastic. So I got no concerns on that score. Yeah, and just really excited now to get it, you know, behind a lens, behind a camera, and take some proper pictures of it and bring you the review. So that's FansToys Sheridan. I'll put the link to TF Source's listing in the video description, so you can go ahead and order one now if you want, and I'll be aiming to get the full review and photos up on their blog ASAP. Thanks again for watching, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and maybe check out some of my other videos whilst you're at it. Quick final shout out to everyone who already supports me on Patreon. The details are coming up at the end of the video, so if you'd like to do the same, of course it's really appreciated. That's it from me. Enjoy the rest of your day. TTFN.